Are you ever fighting fear? One time I was packing to go to a ministry retreat, and every piece of clothing I folded and put in the suitcase, I could hear the enemy saying, "What are you doing? You think you're going to go to this by yourself?" And at that time, I'd never had a guide dog. This was about 10 or 11 years ago. And I was working with a ministry called Encouragement Cafe, and we had a retreat in Myrtle Beach. And I was going to ride with someone I didn't know who was part of the ministry team and go down there and spend the weekend. And that was like huge for me because I had never done that. And I was afraid of things like, well, how am I going to find food? How am I going to find a bathroom because I can't see? And so those things were the fears I had. And as I was reading that devotion in my book, Faith That Walks on Water, I had to chuckle because just last week I spoke at a conference, and to see how God had brought me from that woman 11 years ago to where I am now, God can help us fight our fears. He can help us overcome our fears because our fears do not come from God. But where do our fears come from? That is tool tip number one. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So God gives us the power, like I said, to overcome fears like that. He gives us love to overcome fears, and He gives us peace. He gives us a sound mind, a settled heart. And so, where did fear come from? Well, there's something when you do Bible study called the law of first mention, and the word afraid is first mentioned in Genesis 3:10. And it says that Adam and Eve hid themselves when they heard God in the garden because they were afraid. This is after they ate the forbidden fruit, and this is after they were ashamed. So, shame was the first emotion that was felt after sin, and then fear. So fear has its root in sin for all of us because we all descend from Adam. However, some of us do have our our fears do spring up from sin. Maybe it's not our sin. Maybe it's a sin that was committed against us. For example, if you take someone who has been the victim of a crime, that could very well cause a fear. Something not as harsh but similar is my guide dog Iva. We used to walk by this one dog, and he was in a chain link fence, but we were on the sidewalk and he would come right up to her, barking in her face, and it scared her because she had been attacked by dogs. And I felt so bad for her because I understood where her fear came from. So, what I want you to do this week is to ask God and ask yourself and to pray every day and ask God, where is my sin rooted? What is the root of my sin, but my fear? Where is my fear rooted? Is it from something that happened in your childhood? Is it a traumatic event that maybe you need counseling for? Is it because maybe you fell in a river when you were a kid, or maybe you watched a scary movie? Maybe like for me, I had to get lots of blood work when I was little because I had anemia. And so I had a fear of needles. So when we can find out where our fear is rooted, and most of it will go back to our younger days, not all of us, that will help us fight that fear. And then trust God to give you power, love, and a sound mind. Fear says you can't. Faith says I will. Check out the description because there's two important links there. There is another playlist there on fear that I did a couple years ago on here, and there is also the link to my book, Faith That Walks on Water, Conquering Emotional Bondage with the Armor of God, because this tooltip came from that book. And I will see you next Wednesday on here. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you like this, comment, but please subscribe so you get it next week. And they will also be posted on Facebook. So thanks and have a great time praying to the Lord. Really dig in and find out, where does your fear come from? Where is the root of it? God bless.